When you look at the oceans, they seem so vast that you think to yourself, how could people possibly fish out the ocean?
90% of the big fish in the world's oceans are gone. All this in my lifetime. We have had more impact on the wildlife in the sea than during all preceding human history.
As the demand for seafood increases, along with the fishing capacity of the global fleet, the question becomes, can the oceans keep up with the hunt? Many of the fish species we depend on are in serious trouble, and the situation is becoming more critical every day. Even in the most remote locations, and in the deep waters of the open ocean, fish populations are being exhausted, one after another, by vessels using advanced tracking technology, dragging nets that sweep vast areas of ocean floor, and deploying miles and miles of baited hooks.
When I started fishing, there were a lot of fish. I think that the greatest difficulty has certainly been when you know what you know about fishing and you know you've got the information and you're doing the right thing and you go out and there's still nothing there.
It's not here anymore. It's all gone. It was just unbelievable, the swordfish you catch. And right close, you know. You didn't have to go very far to get them.
Even as stocks of valuable fish have shrunk, the size of the world's fishing fleet has grown. Today's global fishing fleet is estimated to catch 185,000 tons of fish each and every day. Fish simply cannot reproduce quickly enough to keep up with the ever-intensifying hunt. As larger fish disappear, the global fleet is targeting smaller fish at the lower rungs of the marine food chain. Because these species are the prey of larger fish and other marine life, their wholesale removal may cause even further collapses. Also contributing to overall declines is the unintended capture of fish and other species which never even reach the marketplace. Over 42 million pounds of untargeted marine life, so-called bycatch, is discarded every day, and the waste doesn't stop there. The world's vast fleet of longliner vessels can each deploy up to 60 miles of baited hooks, snagging endangered sea turtles, sharks, juvenile fish, and other untargeted marine life. Although some fleets are required to take measures to reduce bycatch, these techniques are rarely used by the majority of longliners worldwide. And then there is bottom trawling. Many scientists believe that this fishing method, commonly used to catch shrimp and bottom fish like cod and haddock, can cause long-term damage to sensitive marine ecosystems. The nets, dragged along the seafloor, trap everything in their path. Fortunately, not all fishing methods and gear pose a threat to the ocean's bounty. Changes in how fisheries are managed and developments in fishing gear technology have been successful in rebuilding fish stocks, as well as reducing bycatch and habitat damage. New England fishermen catch cod the way it was done before the advent of trawling, by simply using hook and line.
A hook fisherman uses a baited hook to catch a single fish, you know, and leaves the habitat from which that fish came from completely intact, thus ensuring a place for other fish to grow up, instead of plowing it over and then saying, "Oh, where's all the fish?" Well, hey man, you wrecked their home, they've moved on, if they're still around.
Fish stocks are in such bad shape in so many cases that we've got to stop fishing those fish to have any hope of bringing them back. And that, of course, raises the question of, well, what are we going to do?
Seafood is now increasingly being raised in captivity, a practice known as aquaculture. Over 1/2 of all fish consumed worldwide is farm-raised. However, some of the more popular and profitable farmed species, such as salmon and bluefin tuna, pose additional threats to ocean fisheries.
They're not vegetarians. They have to be fed other fish. So instead of taking pressure off the ocean, it creates a different kind of pressure to feed and keep fueling the aquaculture.
Why are we trying to raise carnivores? Taking huge quantities of wildlife from the ocean to turn these creatures into fish meal. We don't know what we're doing. We're monkeying around with our life support system.
Scientists are also concerned about the overuse of chemicals and antibiotics in fish farming operations. About 1/3 of all shrimp consumed worldwide is raised in ponds like this, where threats of bacterial infection and disease are often treated by adding chemicals to the water and mixing antibiotics in the feed. A practice that can create disease-resistant bacteria that pose a serious threat to human health. Additional problems with open ocean net cage operations, like those that raise salmon and tuna, is that seawater flows freely through the pens, untreated, and into the surrounding environment. Local biologists and fishermen say that wild salmon are being infested by lice as they migrate near salmon farms, a problem which can be especially lethal to juvenile fish. The waste produced by farmed salmon, together with the chemicals and antibiotics used to treat the fish, can pollute the seafloor, impacting shellfish and other marine life. Another concern is that due to storms or human error, large numbers of farmed salmon have escaped into the wild. These escaped fish compete with wild salmon populations for food, prey on native species, and transmit disease. There can also be economic consequences when farmed fish affect the wild populations that traditional fishermen rely on. In many tropical areas, a way of life and the ecosystem supporting it have been displaced by thousands of shrimp ponds that operate in or near mangrove wetlands.
Mangrove forest is like the supermarket of people like us to collect crabs or some other kind of herbs for medicine. Their life totally depends on the forest.
One of the great premises of aquaculture is to provide food for the people who need it the most, but this kind of aquaculture is doing exactly the opposite. It's destroying the habitats that were feeding the people who needed food the most.
The immense volume of wastewater released from the ponds, often carrying bacteria, viruses, and the chemicals used to control them, has contaminated freshwater aquifers that people depend on. Some shrimp growers are working to improve their operations. They've improved water quality by restoring nearby mangroves and by building settlement ponds for treating wastewater. Some are stocking ponds with lower densities of shrimp to reduce the need for antibiotics. Closed tank systems are currently used to farm a number of fish species. These systems can eliminate waste pollution and escapes and greatly reduce the risk of disease and parasite transfer to wild fish. Some salmon growers have also taken first steps towards addressing problems that have plagued their industry. Vaccines now being used have eliminated the need for some antibiotics. Stronger nets and anchoring systems have helped prevent farmed fish from escaping. Fortunately, not all fish eat fish. Tilapia, one of the most widely farmed freshwater fish in the world, is an omnivore that can be raised almost entirely on plant-based proteins. Catfish is another form of aquaculture involving an omnivorous fish.
When I first started to work, catfish feed contained 12 to 14% fish meal. And today, that feed is about 1 or 2% fish meal. And this has resulted from research.
Shellfish are also being farmed at an ever-increasing volume. From the Pacific Northwest to the Mediterranean coast of France, shellfish farming can be a great source of protein that is ocean-friendly too.
These are animals that stay quiet, they stay where you put them, and they clean up the water. Can produce absolutely enormous amount of food in a very small area. Shellfish, in fact, have the potential of feeding humanity.
Many consumers remain uncertain of where their seafood comes from, about how it was caught, or whether it was farm-raised.
Any idea where your fish came from? Whether it was wild or farmed?
I have no idea.
I don't know. It looks good though.
I have no clue. I'm just eating it.
If consumers thought about what they were eating, that this is wild animals. I mean, if you went into the store and there were rhinoceros steaks and some tiger chops, you'd ask a few questions.
The good news is that reliable information about the origins of seafood products is now becoming more available. Fisheries and fish farms are being certified according to internationally recognized standards for sustainability. Fisheries worldwide can be certified sustainable to the standards of the Marine Stewardship Council and can use the blue MSC Eco-label.
Does you happen to know where that's from? Yeah, Hawaii.
Many businesses have made commitments to source their seafood from sustainable fisheries and farms. In addition, the Monterey Bay Aquarium's Seafood Watch program rates popular seafood items and publishes recommendations for consumers with convenient pocket guides, the Seafood Watch app, and online at seafoodwatch.org.
I think it's a real grassroots movement. They're going into the store and asking, where does this product come from? Is it sustainably caught? People put more pressure on retailers. Retailers will put more pressure on the wholesalers. Wholesalers on up the line.
A growing number of restaurants and chefs are also getting involved.
We are very serious about where we buy our food for the restaurant because the consumer has the power to really change the way things are being done. We can support the people who are taking care of the land and the seas, or we can support the people who are not. And it's a decision that we make. We all make that.
It's very important for a chef to select the right seafood and knows whether it's plentiful or not, because you establish recipe, you establish a way of cooking with that fish, you put your choice in the right place so that you can enjoy fish in the future with your children and grandchildren.
As it becomes more apparent that the bounty of our oceans depends on an ecological balance millions of years in the making, a balance more fragile than ever imagined, we're learning how important it is to fish and farm in a way that preserves the planet's most critical life support system.
If we could get together, the regulators, the scientists, and the fishermen, I can't see why a solution can't be found. I just can't see why it can't happen.
If we are to succeed in consuming aquatic creatures as a part of what we eat, we cannot rely on wild-caught populations anymore. We've got to take the pressure off. And one of the possibilities is through responsible aquaculture.
It really is very much up to us to decide. People shape the world. we can choose. There's a lot of potential to bring things back and have abundance and have beauty. And there's also a lot of risk right now.
The health of the ocean and the quality of our food is ultimately up to all of us. It depends on the everyday actions of ordinary people who care about what kind of world our children will inherit.